Hey everyone, welcome back to another Adventures in the Ink. I'm your host Scott, and join me as always all of my fellow Lumineers, Matt and Mike. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing great. How are you, Scott?
I'm good. So we are back with another exciting episode, and this time we're going to dive into the world of accessories. Just like everyone knows, a great accessory can either make or break what you're doing. And so that philosophy even applies to TCGs with the accessories out on the market. So, Mike, I'll start with you. Just give us a brief overview of what accessories there are, and then we'll dive into each one of those individually.
Yeah. So accessories are just high-level overview is just anything that you don't actually need to play the game, but are going to enhance your gameplay experience. So those include things like card sleeves to protect your cards, playmats to help putting down your cards and moving them around, stop them from sticking or picking up dirt from the table. Damage tokens and dice. Technically, they give you those, but talking about additional things to keep track of damage. Got deck boxes, so ways to carry your cards around, including binders or other storage devices. Got lore counters. And we also have pen and paper, which is actually quite useful, especially if you're going to a tournament. And then overall, like a backpack or some sort of carrying case.
So, and now I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt. What accessories do you like to use?
So trees are always a must. Playmat is a must. I like using dice for like damage counters. I find that the simple king also from years of playing a ton of games, I have a ton of dice. I have enough dice to drown a small child.
Speaking from
You're not
experience, Matt.
Small child.
Okay.
Like I think like 2 weeks old.
Hey, you can drown in like 2 inches of water, so 2 inches of dice. I don't know.
We do not advocate the banishing of small children on this podcast.
Okay.
But yeah, like deck boxes or like deck cases are very helpful. Like all the accessories we're talking about, I used consistently when I play Lorcana.
Right?
Yeah.
So, why should people use accessories?
Yeah, when we actually start talking about the item, that we'll go over the individual uses for them. But like that, in general, they enhance your gaming experience, which I think Mike was saying earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like they definitely approve upon it.
Yeah, I would. I'm trying to think of a good analogy, but for those of you that are athletically inclined, it would be like, yeah, you can play soccer with just your bare feet and a soccer ball, and technically you'd be able to play, but having shoes or cleats would definitely help. Shin guards, I think, and some leagues are required, but like obviously those are like probably your equivalent to your card sleeves and your play mats. And there are other things that are nicer, like having a squirting water bottle rather than one with a screw top or things like that. It's like
A water bottle. Like you don't need a water bottle to play the game, but you want a water bottle.
Yep, exactly. And then for me, I played hockey, and the typical water bottles I would use for like soccer and things like that totally don't work if you have a full cage on your helmet, because you can't, like, you have to like take off the cage or do whatever else, so you just end up getting either one with a straw, and they make those specifically for hockey, or they get one that you can just like squeeze and it squirts out really fast. Anyway, so that's the sports equivalent of like, yeah, you can technically play, but good luck. It's going to ruin your experience. You're either going to like ruin your cards, or it's not as fun of a time.
Also,
So basically,
what we're going to be talking about today is also going to be universal to promote trading card games. So if anyone listening have friends who are also interested in trading card games that are not Lorcana, this episode could also be helpful for them if they're new and starting out.
So basically, the why boils down to enhances gameplay, protects the merchandise. You guys mentioned quite a few accessories, so we're going to dive into each one. We're going to start with the most basic of accessories that is universal to every card game, and that's card sleeves.
Yeah.
So,
So
Mike, we'll start with you.
yeah, card sleeves come in lots of different types. And when I was a wee lad and I was playing Magic the Gathering, I used to not play with sleeves. And you could totally tell which cards were played with and which ones weren't. Because even if you wash your hands before you play, your hands still sweat, especially in stressful situations, and that grime builds up. So even getting what they call penny sleeves, which are those clear plastic, you know, they're about a penny a sleeve is what they cost, and slipping your cards in those is better than nothing. Again, it's kind of like the equivalent of like just putting on any pair of shoes if you were going out into the soccer field rather than just going barefoot. And yeah, so penny sleeves are like by far the cheapest. A lot of times, if you get a promo or something else like that, they'll give them to you in those sleeves just because they're the cheapest to give away. Or if someone's selling it, they'll might have it in that sleeve and then a hard sleeve on top of that. But typically, when you're playing, you won't see people playing with the penny sleeves. One, because according to Scott, our official judge, it's against the rules. You have to have sleeves that are opaque or ones that you can't see the back of the card through. Yeah, so my favorite or my go-to is just because they're available here are the Dragon Shield sleeves.
Oh, they
And
can't empty box.
yeah, and they come in boxes of typically 100, but you can also find boxes that I think have less or sometimes more.
They throw 60 box, 3
Yeah,
box in the kink.
but I would recommend getting the ones of 100 because Lorcana you play with 60 cards at a time, and there's a good chance that you could have one or two damaged sleeves, and you don't want to have to buy an entire new box just because you have to replace a few sleeves.
Yep, and it's also helpful if you do like a sealed event. Those tend to be 40 card decks. So if you have those 3 flying about, you can use those for those events.
Hmm. Yeah, and I kind of alluded to it earlier, but the other thing about sleeves that you have to pay attention to is that they can get damaged over time. The more you shuffle, the more likely the sleeves are going to get marked. And if you go to an official tournament, typically if you make it to the upper round of the tournament, they'll do a deck check and they'll check to make sure that you don't have any damaged sleeves because that can be a very subtle way that you could mark your cards and seen as a form of cheating if you're doing it intentionally. But obviously if they call you out on it, I don't think you're going to get a game loss or anything like that, but they'll tell you you need to resleeve these before your next match unless it's completely obvious that you were marking only specific cards.
Now, yeah, so from my understanding, if they get kept it before the match, you have a certain amount of time to
Right.
retrieve. But if they kept it during the match, that's when you get the DQ'd.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you're probably not going to run into that in your weeklies, but if you're going to these challenge events or something like that and it's very obvious, yeah, you could get match losses for that or game losses. Um,
I also have a couple of retrieves here.
yeah, and they come in usually, or at least the Dragon Shield ones will come in a giant variety of colors.
Mm.
The one drawback I've seen is that you can buy the same color from the same company, but based on the printing or the cut, like how the machines actually physically cut the sleeves, the edges might be different. Some might be curled in a little bit, some might be wavy, or the colors might just be off by the smallest hue, which is kind of frustrating. So you can buy 3 boxes of 100 thinking, oh, I can make 5 60 card decks out of this. But really, you can't because if there's any difference between the 2 boxes, you can't mix and match those sleeves.
Yeah, and that's another reason why it's better to buy the 100 pack that to guarantee. Another thing is like so Dragon Shield used to have a really good reputation for quality and quality control. The quality is still good, but the quality control it seems to not be as good anymore. So that's why a lot of people are switching to the Katana brand, which I'm hearing have really good quality control.
Hmm. Now, do you know for price point, are katanas much more expensive than Dragon Shield or less or about the same?
I think they're about the same. Um, but I have not had too much experience with them.
Also, I'll leave links in the show notes to where you can find each of these different types of sleeves and products that we're talking about. And I do not have an affiliate link, so Sorry, guys, we aren't making any money.
Yeah, I would recommend just going and checking out your local game stores and see what they sell.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
So you guys have been talking about Dragon Shield, Katana, about the official Lorcana sleeves.
So any tree in general that have a full image, because of how you have to print those images, the trees are gonna be less durable. So I highly recommend for trees that have an image, you get a tree for your tree bakery. They make oversized protector tree, but typically for the images ones. The
so
creel, so you can still see the image, but it helps protect the image ones from getting damaged from the submarine. Like the Lorcana ones are all really bad. They don't hold up nearly as well as like Dragon Shield image ones. But
mhm.
but just due to the fact of how the image cartridges are printed, they are inherently will not be as durable as just a plain color, which is why most competitors just do a plain one.
So, Mike, you alluded to it already, but this goes into the Lorcana sleeves. Is you mentioned double sleeving. What is that, and why is that beneficial?
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways you can actually double sleeve. You can. So what Matt talked about was having an outer sleeve. So you can buy the standard sleeves, which generally there's still some wiggle room in the card when you put it in, and the outer sleeves are even wider. Or you can buy, I think Dragon Shield sells these, but they're like perfect fit ones that are just like fit almost exactly to the card with almost no margin, and then you can put that in a standard sleeve. So like you could go for like a perfect fit sleeve and it's into a normal sleeve, or you could do a normal sleeve into an oversized sleeve. But the benefits would be if you do it correctly, it should almost be like spill proof, liquid proof, whatever, because the way that you top load in one and then you bottom load in the other. So you really need to mess up to get any kind of like liquid damage or anything else in there, and it really protects your cards. And depending on what sleeving you're using, it probably will also help prevent accidental bends or something else like that too. But not as strong as the hard top loader sleeves.
And like really double treating it only really necessary. Like if your deck is really offensive, like well, kind of the first game I ever really bothered double treating, and that was partly because when I first started it, it's like, well, I need to play this enchantment card, so like the double treat everything.
Is that you had an enchanted bell, right? Set one.
yeah,
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 I remember you
20%
playing with
off.
that, and I was like, "You're playing with that card?" You're like, "Sorry, it's the only one it's the what I needed to make the full play set."
Oh, we
Then for
still have
fitness,
someone in our Friday
yeah,
night group that plays a Enchanted Yin-Sid, so
yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think the lesser expensive enchanted cards I would consider playing with, just because if you can, it's just equivalent to playing with like a like Rapunzel or a tragic beast tragic hero. I think
Yeah,
um,
like
it's
if you
50, $60 per
yeah,
card.
like if you know if you're not gonna sell it and it's not the end of the world if it gets used in play, then like yeah,
Mhm.
or like or you just really need to play it.
Yeah, but I would say, yeah, if you care about the value of your cards and you are playing with cards that are or a deck that's worth multiple hundreds of dollars, it's worth the investment and the time to double sleeve. But it does make your deck significantly taller or like thicker than
Yep.
your competitor's deck.
Yeah,
And
like
I was gonna
when
yeah,
say
because
it
I was
it
gonna say
actually matters.
I
yeah,
double sleeve a lot of my decks, but that's simply because I do use the official Lorcana sleeves. I'm double sleeving simply to protect the Lorcana sleeves.
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, like I most of my decks are double treed. But I my competitive deck I definitely make sure double treed because the two challenges I went to, both those decks were $500+.
Hmm.
Uh, so I want to make sure to keep those cards at night if possible. Um, but also like if the ones I don't double treat, like if I have a starter deck, like I don't bother double treating my starter deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when we did starter deck tournaments, I was like this close to just not sleeving them at all. I was like, I can always unsleeve it right after. I just feel bad if I like accidentally rip a card that I still need for a playset.
Well, also that it's just so much easier to tuple in Treat. The
Hmm.
Treat make it easier to tuple, and I cannot go back to toppling untreated cards. Like it's just so much better. It just feels so much better, so much easier to treat them. To topple them when they're treated.
Yeah, yeah. The people that do the riffle shuffle with sleeved cards or with the with unsleeved cards, I'm like, just sends shivers down my spine. But yeah, the easiest way to shuffle them if they're sleeved is just doing kind of like I don't know what it's called, the merge shuffle, where you just kind of
Yeah.
like loosely hold two halves of the deck and mash it together using the bottom side where, don't put your cards into the top part of where you
No,
load the cards, because that's a good way to wreck your sleeves.
no, you don't. You don't do it from top. You do it from
Yeah, from the
on the
side
side.
or bottom. Yep.
Yeah. That way you don't have to end up accidentally hooking a card it will they load. Because if you do it that way from top to bottom like that, or something like that, you're more likely to damage your tree because um the corners where they load in and out are where most of the wear and tear are gonna happen for a tree from long time use.
Hmm. You can ask the structural engineers why.
All right. Final thoughts on card sleeves before we move on to the next accessory.
The bakery must have.
Yeah, I would say out of all of these, it's the most important thing, aside
Mm.
from maybe a deck box, because you don't want a bunch of cards getting mixed together that aren't in your deck. But yeah,
Honestly, if you had to choose between trees and a deck box, you buy trees.
yeah. I mean,
You
you
can
can put
put
it
the
in
deck
Ziploc
in a
bags.
camera bag. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I totally. I mean, again, like my childhood days, that's what we did. We rubber banded cards, and you didn't have deck boxes, and you put them in Ziploc bags. So
I used to tear my tits hair tied for that.
All right. Before we move away from sleeves, just a word of caution to first-time buyers. Pay attention to the sleeves because not all TCGs are the same size. So just make sure you're buying the correct size sleeves for your cards.
But typically, do not buy for Lorcana. Do not buy the Japanese side. Japanese are smaller.
yeah,
At this
and
point, there's a lot of different card sleeves out there, so you want to make sure you buy the ones that just say standard size.
Yep.
yeah, and if you ever have a doubt, go to your friendly local game store, ask someone there. They will know. Especially, I mean, they will know if they sell cards. If they don't really sell cards, they might not be able to help you. They're only selling board games, but
Or if they've been there for a while. I know when I went out to California, I went and talked to an employee, and he's like, "I've been here for 2 hours. Let me see if I can find out for you."
sure. Yeah, someone who works at the store will know. They may not be on shift, but
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move in to the next category. And since you brought it up, Mike, I'm going to have you go ahead and talk about it. And that's going to be related to the card sleeves. We're going to talk about deck boxes.
all right. So deck boxes are basically you come in a variety of, um, I mean, sizes one, and also just sturdiness. And typically, what you're looking for is something to keep your cards that should belong together in a deck separate from other cards that should not be in that deck. And usually, you want to have a little bit of extra room, especially, or at least I do when I'm looking for a deck box. So I can put in extra cards that I know aren't in my deck, but I'm still like on the fence. So if I'm playing games with a friend, I'm like, oh, I've got my 60 card deck here, but I have like 3 or 4 other cards that I'm thinking about adding. I want space in my deck box, but I would say the most important thing you're looking for is a hard case. So here's an example of one, and these are higher end. I wouldn't get these for every deck that you play because it's just not cost effective, but it has a very hard outer shell. I could probably stand on this and it would hold, yeah, maybe I'd stand on 2 of them. But it definitely it would prevent your cards from being crushed by any other cards or anything else that you'd have in your bag that you're carrying. This one's nice because it also has magnetic close. It also comes with a little divider thing that you can put in there to separate out like extra cards that you might have that you're looking to add or remove from your deck during casual play. But yeah, I would say that's probably the main reason why you want them. I don't know. Matt, Scott, you guys have other reasons why you want deck boxes?
It does protect your deck. Also, like I don't have one here, but I know God had some of the Disney Lorcana ones. It's just another way to represent yourself. Like another. Also, it helps identify these different decks more easily. Put them in different deck boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the one I use for tournament. It's a Ultra Pro hard style one. It holds about 100 street cards. And also it have a compartment on the bottom. This is where I keep my dice and look. Counter sometimes. Well, for tournament, I'm just keeping dice down here. On my damage counters. But this is nice, so they can hold my deck and some extra empty streets. And I know my deck is going to be safe and protected in here as it's bustering around in my backpack.
One thing you just mentioned, Matt, that I like the most is when you talked about the Lorcana deck boxes. You are representing the franchise, but you're also representing yourself. So the nice thing about deck boxes and even card sleeves is they come in so many different styles that you can let your personality shine through your stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gives you more room to affect yourself, or like I love it when I can get my deck box, my treat, and my playmat to all be the same image. Like
Hidden synergy points.
like my goblin. I never got the playmat, but my goblin one for a while. In Magic, had a cat on it that said wild and free, but I felt represents my goblin very well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you guys are totally right. I'm definitely a function over form typically person. So
And
but I do appreciate when people have their deck blinged out, and they have that kind of like, these sleeves are important to me because they represent, how I like to play the game or whatever else. So that's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah, like so with Lorcana, I felt like I kind of matured as a TTD player. So like I am just moving towards like, okay, all my decks are basically moving towards the same color tree. I found the color I like. This is what I'm using for now. The only color I'm buying in trees. My deck
Mhm.
boxes now are like very practical now. I'm not buying the little random cheap ones. I'm just using like I have my tournament one, and then I have a big one for all my decks.
Then there's me who's buying all the Lorcana ones and representing Lorcana everywhere I go.
Yeah. I mean, no, you don't have any doubt when you pull out a deck box and it's got Elsa or Snow White on it, and like, oh yeah, they're playing Lorcana. They're not putting their Goblin deck in there.
Not necessarily true. I've seen a ton of people use Pokemon deck boxes for other games, or like I've used
Yeah.
Magic for other games.
But have you seen someone use Lorcana boxes for anything else
That's
other than
true.
Lorcana?
That is true.
So what are the downsides or upsides to the Lorcana deck boxes compared to all the other deck boxes?
The Disney characters. Um,
That's an upside, in case Matt didn't
yep, yep.
qualify that.
It's an upside. The Disney characters, and the fact they all from the artwork of Lorcana, with the artwork of the game is fantastic. They super nailed the artwork. So that's a huge benefit. The only downside between the only real negative to those deck boxes is how they open, because they open on like a built-in hint thing with practice. Over time, that is gonna be what wear down first and eventually
Hmm.
break.
Yeah.
So the deck box Mike has and the deck box I have are typically designed in ways that you won't get that wear and tear from you.
I know the first time I got the Lorcana deck boxes, that hinge is very stiff
Yep.
too.
Yeah. So it's a little
So
hard to get.
it's hard to get the cards in and out. I actually had to play with each deck box a little bit to get it so where I can open and get my cards out easily.
It's like breaking in a baseball mitt. So many sports
Yep.
references.
Speaking of that, of the Lorcana deck boxes, I don't know if you guys remember. 'Cause I remember talking about to you guys when this first became a thing, way before we started doing the podcast. There was someone was saying online that they left the deck boxes in the sun and they smelled really, really bad. And for a
Like it
while,
gave off an odor.
yeah,
Oh,
I
jeez.
don't know if that's true. I don't know if they still do that,
I
but
remember reading that story.
yeah, it's so funny reading that. And be careful, guys. The deck boxes smell really bad when
Well,
you read them in the
the
So-
good
sun.
news is for you guys, I have left my deck boxes in my car for 2 days straight, and they never smelled.
Okay. I was gonna say, and you, Matt, you just gave me a new idea, like of ways that people could cheat. You know, it's like an odor test for their cards. Have you ever seen a person like going up to their deck and smelling just to tell where the card is? Call a judge. One thing about the Lorcana deck boxes is they are, you know, the plastic is that they're made of is definitely better than this kind of like the paper or the cardboard that the Dragon Shield and other ones come in. So I will carry around a lot of decks that I don't care about. Kind of my homebrew decks that just generally are worth less than $50 or $100 in these. But these will get crushed. Like if you put 2-3 decks on top of it, these boxes will not withstand that. So
Well, this box was that's in my backpack for a while. Like that's with trees and stuff in it, and
Yep.
like they get crushed.
and they don't stay shut all the time, so you can see like how easy it is for me to just like a little bit of jostle and it just kind of comes up and off. You want a deck box that takes a little bit of effort to open and close, that way it doesn't accidentally open in your bag.
For me, my only downside I have with the Lorcana deck boxes is the size of them. Running double sleeved cards, they just barely fit a regular deck double sleeved in those deck boxes. I have to be very careful how I put the cards in and put them out because they just fit perfectly. Single sleeved cards, you can fit them in those boxes no problem with room to spare. Double sleeve takes the entire box to fit.
You should
Yeah.
leave them some comments on that.
Yeah, normally with double tree, I recommend getting a deck box that is made to hold 100 cards. So it can like have some wiggle room, but but it still will hold your 60 card double tree.
But it won't have a princess on it, Matt.
You
It
can
could.
find some with
I was gonna
princesses.
say it could.
Okay,
Oh, you can put your own princess on it.
right. This might not be officially licensed.
That's fine.
Okay, so let's move to the next category that plays right along with this. And if you notice, the accessories I've talked about so far are the ones we use during the gameplay. So let's go ahead and talk about playmats.
Matt.
I love playmats. I think especially one of the things is when you trade cards, the trade cards are a lot harder to pick off of tables than non-trade cards. So the playmat really help with that. They help when you go to like tables and stuff, like is the table full of crumbs that people eat at the table, especially like when you're playing like kitchen table matted, or like if you're going to a tournament with lots of people moving around, that having the playmat is good to protect, give you cards another layer of protection. Also, like you can have a fun design, you can have reminders. I've seen people have playmats with like turn orders and stuff, or like rules on them, so that a little reminder. Or some people have the low counter on them.
hmm Yeah, you'll
You can
see.
even have,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say you can even have playmats that have like the zones on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you know where your different each pile is.
Buyer beware, though. Like, there's a good chance that the game of Lorcana will have different rules or different zones or different things throughout time. And so, if you want to buy a playmat that has very specific areas for your cards, it might not be used useful later. And I think we saw specifically there was one that had character section, and then one that had like ink section, or maybe it was like characters and then items and then ink, and then they introduced locations, and it's like, well, where do you put locations?
Yeah, well, and that wasn't a official product either. That was a fan put
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like that, yeah, no, that you gotta take with a grain of salt when you do like these outlines and stuff if they're not following the official pattern.
Hmm. Yeah. When I was again to date myself back in my day, people did not have playmats. Like it just wasn't a thing, and I think. I mean, I don't know, Matt. Maybe you can speak to when they became popular, but I don't even remember a lot of people having them in 2008, 9, 10.
Yeah, so like when I was in high school around that time, no one I played with had played math. It wasn't until I was in college that, and some of that the area I went is a lot bigger, but that's when I really started seeing people do playmats. So probably about 2012, 2011 is when I really started seeing people use playmats.
Hmm. Yeah, but I have to say I was a little skeptical at first when I got back into TCGs, and then after playing on one, I was like, why would anyone ever play on not a playmat?
Oh
It's a
yeah,
very smooth experience.
it very smooth. It's nice to have a quick definition of like this is my area, this is my playfield.
Keep your stuff off my area when you're playing next to people. Like no.
Yeah.
Uh, what's nice about playmats, just like sleeves and deck boxes, is you can personalize them. Like we've been talking about them, so you don't have to have a playmat that's just Lorcana, but you can have a playmat representing almost anything in life at this point.
Hmm.
Um, you can get any king, and I recommend you get stuck in the press yourself. What I don't recommend, and then we talked about this before, do not get the naked anime girl playmat. You will be actually venued.
Or
We will
even
ask you
just
to
the,
leave.
Yeah.
or even just the overt sexually one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They don't even have to be naked, but there's very overtly sexual ones too, and
Yeah.
even those, no.
When I went to buy my first playmat, it wasn't so much me searching for a playmat. I'm like, I want to get a generic one because I play a lot of TTDs. I want to get one with an anime character I like, and the search wasn't to find a character I like. The search was to find a appropriate image of a character I like. Which I would think they'll have that playmat, but I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah. It's always funny when your search terms need to include fully clothed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, the internet.
And then there's me who all of my playmats I always gear towards whatever the game is I'm playing. So when I play my Lorcana, I have a Lorcana playmat. When I play Digimon, I have my Digimon playmat.
Yep, that's how I like to be
Mm.
too. But I also like having like one generic one in case they do get a new TTG. Um, but right now I can all my playmats are like I have one blank one, two Disney Lorcana ones, and then the rest of the Legend of the Five Wings.
So, how long do you guys have to be playing a game, a new TCG or new card game or whatever, that until you say you commit to buying a playmat of that game?
Way
When
less time than it probably should be.
Oh, sweet! I bought a starter deck. Time to buy a playmat that's worth more than the
No,
starter deck.
no, no.
um
I'll play the game. But like once I determine I like the game, then it becomes a matter of do I have money for a playmat?
Yeah.
I buy the playmat when I buy my first deck, my first starter deck, my first I
All right.
immediately buy the playmat that same day.
Fair enough. Yeah, I thankfully had leftovers from when I was playing Keyforge, and um, I was just surprised at how many people were, because again, like I started back into TCGs during the pandemic, and so I didn't really play with many people, but I had these accessories. And I was like, oh, these are actually really popular,
Yeah.
and um, I was like on the fence about buying a Lorcana playmat because I was like, oh, I already have one, But it is definitely a fun way to be like, these are fun characters. It's for the game that that I'm playing. But you can totally buy a generic, whatever, non-licensed playmat for, I don't know, probably 10, $15.
Yeah, I would say 10, 15 is on the lower end, but on average, you can get a playmat for like 20, no problem.
Yeah.
Like I have a plain white one. I think I paid $10 for.
Hmm.
But like also, if you're good enough, you just win the playmat.
Oh, not everyone has a championship stitch playmat, Matt. Some of us
But
scrub out. I'd say they're really nice, and plenty of people will have extra if you show up to especially like a friendly local game store, and you want to play. And they'll say, usually, I'll take two with me in case somebody doesn't have one. I'll offer to someone. At least they can experience it. And usually, after they find it, they're like, "Oh, it's only $20. Sure, I'll pick one up."
Now I remember what I was going to say. Well, like, asking how soon you play. I agree because I had so many playmats from Legend of the Five Rings. It took me a while before I bought a Lorcana one. I think I waited until like into the Inkland to buy a Lorcana one.
Mm-hmm. Was that your broom one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Matt's got a sick one that's got just like vertical art of 5 or 6 different like broom related cards. And the
Yeah.
Sorcerer Mickey.
Yeah. If you want, well, if we ever get the unpacking videos out, or some of those unboxing videos that we have sitting and all need to be edited photo, you guys will see that playmat in those videos.
And a lot of googly eyes. Some googly eyes. No.
And that's all we're gonna say on that.
Yeah.
You're gonna need to watch the videos if you want more
You're
on
gonna
that.
figure out where they are.
Yeah, with me, I bought the Lorcana playmats day one. I got most of the playmats that have come out for Lorcana. That's also just a collector in me. I'm just collecting everything. I'm kicking myself because I have missed a few playmats. And I'm sad I missed Winnie the Pooh.
Mm.
I know, like there's
So-
been so many playmats I wanted that either couldn't find them, or when I did find them, people were selling them so above retail that I'm like, I'm not bothering with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say don't. Well, I mean, you can spend your money however you want, but at this point, don't spend more than retail for the newer playmats. Or if you are, I wouldn't go more than 50%, so $30 for a playmat. I've seen some that were selling for 50. I'm like,
Yeah,
ugh.
when I was in Chicago for the challenge event, I saw that one of the game stores I went and checked out there was selling the Rapunzel playmat for $50, and I'm like, that's not. I love the artwork, but like it's not worth it.
The last couple of conventions I went to, the Into the Inklands and newer were $50 or cheaper for the playmats. The Rise of the Floodborn playmats were selling for $100, and the first chapter ones were selling for $200.
Jeez. I mean, I guess it's a scarce product if you're a collector and you want it, but getting a first chapter versus a Stitch playmat versus whatever, it's like they all play the same.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
and you can, no matter what character you like or kind of art style you like, you can find versions of them online.
and like honestly, like I've seen people on Etsy that trade up the steal the playmat artwork and sell those playmats.
We are not condoning such illegal activities, but
We are
we
not
recognize that they exist.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm beginning to wonder about you after
Drowning
babies
in
and now.
people with.
Well, what can you go on about me is I'm
Nice.
all cock.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the accessories that rely directly on playing with the cards. Now we're going to switch a little bit gear to talk about a accessory that is usable during a game, but is not necessary. That's going to be damage tokens, damage tokens itself are necessary, but the type of damage tokens that are being used are what people play with.
Real quick,
Um,
before we move on, there's a couple of sword games I want to talk about for Playmat.
Oh, yeah. You want to talk about storage?
Yeah.
Go for it.
So they make these little tubes. These help a good way to help store your playmat. To help protect them, because sometimes like you just put them in bags and stuff, they'll get like fraying on the little sides.
Yeah.
So
What's
they
the
do like
brand on that?
Game Genix.
Okay.
And then also, if you are like me and you have a ton of playmats, these little like bag holders that are perfect for that holding playmat.
Yeah.
Just roll them up, put them in here, because these are they started out as like packed bag holders, and then people realized they can put like tubes and stuff in here. And
Yeah.
so I paid like it was on Current at Joanne the other day, so I paid $6 for that, and it can hold like 14 playmats.
Yeah. So for those of you that are listening and not watching, it's basically a plastic cylinder that's got a bunch of circular holes cut out the side. And typically people will store their used grocery plastic bags in there and reuse them for later. But Matt has cleverly rolled up the mats and stuck them through those circle openings, and it looks like that one that you have can hold what, like 15 or 20?
It can hold 14 of them rolled up, and then on the top of it, I have a giant 2-player play map of Legend of the Five Rings. I just stubbed down there because that was too long to put in the rolled up ones.
Yeah. So there's always creative accessories that are like outside. Random aside, my brother uses like, or at least a lot of people in Magic, I think, started using toolboxes for certain cards. And I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, it makes sense. It's really hard. It's kind of indestructible and lots of compartments.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Scott. Didn't mean to derail that. But
yeah, you're just jumping around on what I was going to talk about. So,
yeah,
I was getting to storage eventually.
yeah.
I don't know with you. It's just
So you brought up damage tokens, and I actually have a slight pet peeve that dice are allowed, and I don't not like that dice are allowed, but after somebody brought up to me when playing Keyforge the reason why they don't like dice to keep track of, the amount of in Keyforge you have like damage counters that you have. You also have amber, which is kind of like a form of currency that you use, but rather than having dice to represent those, they have a physical token for each one. So the damage counters may say like they do in Lorcana, it's like 3 or 1 or whatever. The issue with dice is that if somebody knocks the table, it's really hard to rebuild the board state. Or if like a dice can roll down or roll up, and it's hard to keep track. So typically, I don't like love dice for this, but I still use them all the time.
but also like even if you have the counter on, if someone bumped the table, like, oh no, this one damage wasn't on Tamatoa, it was on Donald.
Yeah, but it's a lot easier for a dice to roll, especially if you go above a 6-sided dice. Like if you see anyone using a 20 or even a 10-sided dice, I would ask them to use 6-sided dice instead, because those are a lot more likely to roll. But again, it's personal preference. Really, like, it's just a way to keep track of stuff. But you can get creative with it.
My problem I had with dice, and I did not even start using dice until probably into the Inklands. Before that, I was using the actual damage counters. Is I noticed some people were putting the dice down for how much damage it's received. Other people were using dice for how much damage it had left. So the numbers, not everyone uses the dice the same way. And so it got a little confusing depending on what where I was at. So with me, I think it needs to be, if you are using dice, everyone just needs to be on the same page of this is how you use the dice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because dice are supposed to be a substitute for damage counter. It should be counting how many counters you have, not how much HP they have left. I understand that for some people, that's how the brain worked. It worked a lot better, for them to count down. But I understand that counting up is more of how the game is designed and it's how you remove the counters. Like the willpower is not how much help, and when they take a damage, that number go down. The willpower is how much damage can they hold.
Yep. I think that's a good explanation. But yeah, I agree with what Scott said too. It's like ultimately, if you're playing kitchen, table, like just everyone agree on the same thing. But yeah, it technically should be the amount of damage that the character has received, or is currently
Yeah.
carries. I don't know what the official. Do they carry damage? Do they hold damage?
They take it.
They take.
How much they've taken.
Yeah.
But I like dice, and like, you know, Mike been talking about old school, but like back when I first started playing TTDs and stuff, we had little gemstones that we would use, like for Magic and for
Mhm.
like Pokemon and other TTDs.
I can take you guys back even further because I started playing Magic way before either of you. Way back when I was playing Magic back in high school, we actually had to write down the damage on the piece of paper, rip it out of a notebook, and set it on the card.
I mean, like, what deal with that?
Ooh, we're having a. When did you start playing
Really?
Magic
You want to
tournament?
age me that much?
I started playing Magic when I was 6 years old. I
Yeah,
could
was
barely
you're-
read the cards.
but you're
Wait,
like
My brothers like were teaching me how to play, and I was memorizing
year-
what they
Matt,
did.
but you're like
What
25,
year
so
was that?
I'm 32.
I know.
Yeah,
So that would have been 26 years ago. So probably 98.
I was playing Magic all the way back in '95.
Okay,
Yeah,
I would have been 3.
I started playing when Ice Age came out, so whatever that was, I think it was 96 or 95. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was past the point of being able to easily get a hold of the very valuable cards, but still at the point where you could have totally picked up a Power 9 card minus a Black Lotus for under $500. And now you're just like, why didn't I ever think, like, I mean, like, I remember physically going to the card shows and seeing, like, here's a Mox Pearl, cool, like it was like within arm's reach. Now they seem so inaccessible. Yeah, and dual lands were like $30 or $20 a piece or something. I don't know. It was like ridiculously cheap. Anyway,
We get back on topic.
yes, back to Lorcana.
So besides, my only other issue I have with dice is where people place the dice on the card.
Yeah.
We still have to be able to see the strength and willpower of the cards, the original strength and willpower. But I have noticed, and I am guilty of it. I am guilty of it. Is I don't really pay attention to where I lay the dice down, and a lot of times, depending on who I'm playing with, I can't see the strength and willpower.
Yeah, so really the best place I found to put it is kind of like, if it's just one die, you kind of put it in the middle there. Like, you wanted to couple up the image, but like you can put it like next to the name. But yeah, you don't want to couple up any important information. So like that's on the character image. It's like the best way to do it. Cause it's
But
still,
still, you still have to have it away from the strength and the willpower.
but
'Cause
also
even
like, oh, what you're saying about like using damage counters and stuff. Like you'll have that same issue with damage counters.
Yeah, it takes up more real estate typically.
Yeah.
But you can have damage counters that say -5 or -3 or minus whatever. Yeah, and so earlier I said that certain games, or maybe I alluded to it, certain games forbid you to use dice, and in those games there's like a huge secondary market for custom damage counters and stuff like that. And that's just something that I haven't really seen here in Lorcana, or at least from the people I've played, I've only seen maybe one person who's had any kind of custom tokens. Everyone has just been using dice and whatever else, and that's a space that I think would be fun to explore. I think you could have really fun themed damage counters or whatever else.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of
I've
really
s-
fun ones for other games. But then
I've seen one person I think use them in a tournament. Otherwise, yeah, it's just dice.
Yeah.
dice are easier to come by. Most people like I was saying earlier, like most people that have a ton from various other games. Like most of the dice I use are the generic D6 that I got from Warhammer. Like you just kind of accumulate the dice, so it's easier for people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the availability is there, but if we're talking about accessories, I'm just surprised more people haven't accessorized, via
It.
damage counters and stuff.
I mean, the game's
And
only a year old. The give the game time.
it's
I
not even damage counters though. It's also some games have tokens that say like evasive or support or any of the keywords that they where you get added to cards for a
yeah
turn or whatever.
Mm.
yeah.
Like those also aren't being used in Lorcana as much as I've seen them in other places.
Yeah, I think it gets a bit burdensome in Lorcana when you have things that are like gains evasive during your turn. Like, are you going to put that on your character every turn and
No,
then take it off?
no, but there was this one specifically with the bunch of cards that grant resist into the start of your next turn. Those are the ones you want the tokens for.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Like things that go until the start of your next turn. I think things that are during your turn only, you wouldn't want to use them because that's just too much busy
Another
work.
another thing is I saw a big debate on Pete referee on whether or not you need to vocalize that to your opponent. You should vocalize it, but some people are saying there was an argument that people were wrong, but they were saying that if you don't vocalize Pete referee, you can't play act, and then your opponent can play the act the next turn.
They're saying that it was like a missed triggered ability.
Yeah,
So
with
even though it's
not have
mandatory, but
yeah, they're
it's weird.
wrong, but that's having a token that having a type of token for that Pete, like you play Pete and you put a token on the board saying like you can't play act in next turn to
Yeah.
help remind your opponent.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think as the game grows and more people get into it, because right now, what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of first-time TTD players, and we're seeing a lot of veteran TTD players in Wakanda. So the veterans are the ones that'll have all the stuff from previous games and don't really want to spend money on new accessories. So like, why can't I just use my dice that I already own? And then the newer players haven't really thought about these tokens or haven't really like went about like buying them yet. So I think as the game grows, especially now that they say that you can use ink, you can use tokens for ink substitutes. I can eventually see people doing more of that.
Yeah, it would be Matt. You brought up a good or an interesting idea of using the different sleeves for inked cards or something else like that.
Yeah, this is cooking we were talking beforehand. But I was thinking not using different trees. I was saying
Over
taking
sleeves.
taking over trees and
Yeah.
putting them on, so that way it'd be like quicker in the math to do it. And then now that Mafata is, you can take the stuff out, or after the game, you can take out what you inked.
Yeah.
Make it easier to tell for your opponent to tell that these cards are ink, and then that way if you do set your hand down, or like if your hand, but they may know you're not doing shenanigans with your
Yeah.
ink well.
Yeah. That's what I'm honestly slightly afraid of. I was like, if somebody really wanted to cheat, they totally could because there's like you've seen those magicians that are like sleight of hand, like you just can't even pay attention to it. So it's like the fact that all of these cards kind of blend together, or you catch someone not looking, you could totally cheat in that way. So please
Yeah,
don't cheat.
yeah. Remember, folks, do not trust players with long trees. When you do the opening handshake, make sure you grab on the forearm to check for extra cards.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
My final thoughts on this, what I like about Ravensburger is the dice that we get in the trove boxes now are the D6 dice, but they're smaller than a regular D6, so they're not
Hmm?
taking up that much space on the cards.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they're about the same size that like war games use. So like really what I recommend to people with what Mike uses, the
Mhm.
Citadel dice. They're like $10. You get like 20 thumb.
Yeah, I think it's about 20.
Yeah,
Either
so you
15
get
or
one of
20.
those and you're set. That's enough. You're not unless you're playing a crazy ridiculous deck. You're not gonna need more than that. And the small and like yeah, like these deck boxes that have the apartment, the smaller dice that fit a lot better in them.
Last thoughts on damage counters dice before we move on?
I'm not gonna say you guys keep talking about not wanting dice and you want people to do more equity counters. I say be the change you want to be in the world. In the next few weeks, I want to see you guys with these Etsy store custom damage counters since you guys seem to be
If I
bashing dice so hard.
if I had a 3D printer, I would. Honestly, I think you could come up
Don't
with
you
a
have a 3D printer, Scott?
I was just going to say, once I get better at using my 3D printer, I have only used it one time so far, and it did
yeah.
not come out so well.
You know what? My dad had a 3D printer, and he'd always asking me to give him stuff to print. If you guys send me a file or what you want, I will have him print it, and then when I go down for Thanksgiving, I will grab it for you guys.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I will brainstorm some designs. I
I have one design that I want to use for resist so bad. Oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys give me a list of stuff. I'll send it to him. We'll get it for you guys.
All right.
All right. So next up is Lorcana specific, but we're going to talk about the lore counters.
Now, it does not necessarily have to be what kind of specific. You just need to have a sort of counter. Because the several ones I've used for Magic that also work for Lorcana, you just go up instead of going down.
But you're using
Yeah.
life counters, where not lore counters.
I'm
You-
sorry. I'm
Be
sorry.
like,
You're right.
Judge.
You're right.
Yeah. Someone calls you out in the middle of a tournament, being like, Judge. He's actually keeping track of life totals, so he's still at 0 lore. He didn't win the game. Uh, yeah, honestly so I use different things for different settings. Um, if I don't feel like getting on my phone, or if I have like too much notifications or whatever else, I'll just use the kind of ones that come in the troves or the ones that you can get from the organized play. Yeah, those hexagonal ones, they're great. And it has everything you need, unless you're playing the Illuminator's Quest, Deep Trouble, and you need to go above 20 lore. But yeah, it's very easy, very simple. It's hard to nudge the wrong direction. It's hard to see for your opponent. So you just have to have that trust system, or just know that the person's always going to be asking, wait, how much lore do you have?
And what I've seen people do is some people will have two, one for you, one for the opponent. Yeah, one for themselves and one for the opponent. Is what I've seen some people do. Another thing you could do is just what you're talking about the magic stuff. Magic make D20 spin counters that all the numbers are right next to each other in order, so you can use that to count up to 20 instead of counting down from 20. And then another thing is like you can get these generically these little spin down or counters or the number counters that go up to numbers. I know Game Genetic make ones that can go up to 99.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of games use them, so like and like I have a little quickie magic one I got at a promo that can do 99, and I'll butt that out sometimes.
For these, I've seen the most common I've seen are people using just the app on their phone.
Yep.
Or using those hexagonal ones. I did see someone that had one of the Podcana branded ones. Like, so that's like a competitive Lorcana podcast, and they have some inside jokes. I think about the 47%. I actually saw someone with one of those. It was pretty neat looking. And it was like heavy duty, like metal, like, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think there's still a lot of space for people to have their own customized whatever,
Well,
or like to have dual, one for you, one for your opponent on the same spin down. Like,
yeah. And what I see a lot at the other local game store is there's a several players that have wooden boards that with marble go across. They put that in between the two players, and one
mhm.
marble with you, one marble with the opponent, and you can clearly see because the numbers on both sides where each player's at.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, One interesting thing. So at our last set championships, we had a player who went to the local yarn shop just down the street from our store and picked up I think it's called a stitch counter or something, but it's like a handheld like plastic device that's got a
Yeah,
little button, and you can press up to go up one and press down to go down. And he was keeping track of lore that way. It's just click, 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 click. So there's something fun about the tactileness of that.
there's also like fit counters and stuff you can get. What I know got day job, what I'm not gonna mention, um, that I don't know privacy stuff, but I know his job sold it.
Oh yeah. So there are lots of things that can be repurposed as lore counters. Um,
Speaking of lore counters and going to competitions, what about pen and paper?
Pen and paper the way to go for tournaments. Because a lot of the stuff we were counting about, and we're talking about dice getting bounced. Lower counters, specifically the spin dials, are very easy to bounce and move.
or for someone to cheat and slide it up or down, or
Yeah. So like a pen and paper, like a lot of times, like the challenge event handed out these ones that have the pre-column divided up in each column is divided up in seconds to have a you and opponent. So like most you can find a lot of these online, but typically designed for trading card games to help keep track of it. Another thing I see a lot of people do is instead of doing pen and paper, because they feel that kind of wasteful, they'll have the little like Palm Pilot exit set type thing that's erasable. So they'll do that for the mat, and then when the mat is over, then they'll erase it.
hmm yeah. And the main reason, again, to prevent the rolling issues or things like that, but it also helps in judge situations where you need to call a judge or something might need to be rolled back because something was misplayed. You can track how much lore each opponent had at a specific time, or at least you can tell how they've gone up or down in lore during the game. Whereas if you just have the spin downs, you're only keeping track of the current lore and not the lore that they just had before that or two times before that. Um, so it's like keeping a ledger uh, of all of your transactions.
Yeah, and, like I know like one of the championships that we went to, I walked over to Mike's table after I finished my mat, and I was looking at his low quality, and his opponent was like game low, game low, game low, game low, and then Mike was just like knucking, one, and win.
Yeah, thanks Tamatoa and Lucky Dime, or two Lucky Dimes and a Tamatoa. I think I was 0, 5, and then 20.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it, I'm like, what?
And now our listeners, you now know how Matt and me feel and against Mike on Friday nights.
I mean,
Nothing
that's how
nothing
it is
matters
with my
until the last turn. That's all I have
but
to say.
that's how it is with my broom deck too. I went from like I've easily gone from like 5 to win with brooms.
Yeah,
Like I definitely have gained like double digit lore with brooms in one turn
it's
out of
not
nowhere.
it's not how you start. It's who crosses the
Yep.
line first.
Yep.
Okay. Uh, any last things you guys want to talk about on accessories that are used for gameplay?
No, I mean, just to cycle back to what I've said, I think for all of these, there's a lot of space. If you're a creative person, you like 3D printing, you like kind of tinkering with things, like you could, I mean, you're not going to make a full job out of this more than likely, but you could make a good side hustle making some of these and selling it off if you market it well. I think there's a desire and um, an opening.
And also just like again, like you can find way to protect yourself with it. It's a fun little way to accessorize. But they did make the gameplay a lot easier, and that visually can make it look nicer.
Okay, so we're going to switch over to the last thing on accessories to talk about. And Matt's already alluded to it, but this is basically storage. How do you store cards? How do you store accessories? How do you store everything? How do you carry everything? It's all roped into one just giant storage theme.
There's lots of what are those things? The little Russian nesting dolls. I feel like there's there's like many different layers on how you can store things, and each one is for a different circumstance. But I would say, for me, there's like three different circumstances I can think of. One is bulk storage, so all of my commons and uncommons that I have like way more copies of than I need, but I want to keep on hand because if I want to make a deck or if I want to give them away to friends, whatever. Typically because it's not that valuable to sell them online either. And I've bought these. It's basically a cardboard. I don't know. It's a big, maybe 2 foot.
Indeed.
Yes. So those. Yes, but it's two. It's like a 4x4, so it can hold like 16 of those.
Yeah, we have some of those at the top.
Yep, and so those are great.
Yeah.
I have used about two. I mean, you could do the math on how many cards I buy now, but I've used about 2 of those boxes per set. So I'm still on my first big whatever box, and I'll probably cull out of it. Slash, if I get a friend to join in or want more, like I can easily give them all my commons and uncommons to just have, or like, half of or whatever. So that's storage for bulk. Like typically nothing in there goes in sleeves. And then I would use some sort of like a folio binder for my rares or things that I want to trade. Not necessarily all my rares, but things that I know are valuable that I have more than I want. And I want to ask someone, hey, I'm looking for this other card. Is there anything in here that you'd like? And lastly, I mean, storage, I guess, for my like carrying my decks around. If I'm going to a tournament, I only carry these hard cases and whatever decks that I'm playing. Yeah, I think that's it. The don't judge me, but the very bulk storage are those big plastic totes you can get for like traveling. So they're not going. My cards aren't going in there raw, but they're going in, like troves or other things like that. So other storage containers inside that storage container. But that way I can lift and move, thousands of cards at a time rather than having to carry a whole bunch of trove boxes or something at a time.
Yeah, like the cards I'm selling, I keep in the white generic boxes that hold like 800 to 1,000. BTW, the company, the brand I use. But I did drop a bunch of trove on the ground. Oh, that later. But I have another trove. So I did use my trove boxes for the one that I haven't had a chance to buy a binder and put a binder in, because these will hold a full playset of the set, which is very nice.
Nice.
So I use the trove boxes, and then I use a binder for the older set that I had binder money for.
Ooh.
It's upside down. But I typically like the one that had the black and the little plastic.
I need those cards, Matt.
Right
there in the middle.
But also it mentioned Mike portrayed that one king when I really started doing Magic. What people were like, hey, you need to put together a binder for trade, because when you go to events and stuff, binders are a great. You just hand them in the binder and they flip through it. It's a lot easier to flip through, a lot easier to see what you want, and you can go from there. Like the binder I sold would have them more like the card loaded in on the side, and they have a nice black matting felt king to help protect the cards. Those are a lot better than getting those cheap 9
The clear plastic ones, yeah.
Yeah, those they work, but you gotta be careful because if you pick up that binder upside down, all those things are going out. And like that happens a lot when I was growing up with Pokemon cards.
So the other thing that you have to be aware of, and yeah, when I was growing up playing Magic, I didn't realize this. The cards that are right next, so if you buy the 3-ring binders to put those in, and they're not like, bound together, like those pages aren't actually part of the folio or the binder that you have. Depending on the kind of binder that you have, your pages can get bent over
Mhm.
those rings, and you can like seriously damage your cards. So if you're looking to buy things, I would recommend don't get ones that you have to put into a 3-ring binder, but buy binders that are already, or like the folios that already have the pages in them. But if you do have to get those ones, or like you choose to do that, just you have to be very careful when you're opening and shutting them, making sure that all of your cards are on that kind of flat side before you shut the top cover. Otherwise, there's a good chance you could just bend cards instantly.
Al-
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if you are throwing them not in trees with make sure it's stored into cooking top cardboard, like the Trove or the BCW cardboard boxes. If you do like a wooden box of cooking, it can still potentially damage the cards. So if you are throwing them untreated, you want to make sure they have like a nice top cardboard to help protect the cards.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, my rule of thumb is any card that could potentially ever be worth more than $1, like that I would think that I would sell, I'm just going to put into a sleeve, and that's what I
Yeah.
use a lot of my bulk sleeves for.
Yeah.
But
But like that specific set of advice was a few weeks ago I went to a local league night at a different store and some Yu-Gi-Oh players were talking and one of the younger like probably middle school, high school kids were talking to some of the older players. And he's like, yeah, I'm throwing them in this, blah, blah, blah. And the player's like, no, you need to get a cardboard box. Like, the box you have that when you look nicer is not going to protect. Like, he had like a 10 of cooking. Like, that is not going to protect the card long term.
yeah. Yeah, you have to pay attention to the hardness of the material that you're putting your cards in, because that will cause bends and dents and stuff in your cards.
Yes. So for me, I use the cardboard boxes for my bulk. I use the folios for my collection. But then I also I have the nice carry case that carries all of my deck boxes, my playmat, my dice, all in one together as well. So there's more than ways to storage not just your cards, but storage your accessories too.
And some of those we were talking about before the sale, like you can get a nice storage case that can hold multiple deck boxes, and some of them do have like traps and stuff, which you'll see a lot
Mhm.
of people at local events where they go in with those.
And then how do you carry your stuff to and from game stores or tournaments?
I used a really nice backpack that my former job gave me for lasting 2 years.
Yep. I use a backpack that my wife got from her former company. Yeah, it's generally depending on how many things you're taking. Again, if you're going to tournaments, general rule of thumb, don't take more than a few decks, because in case you do lose your bag, you don't want to lose all of your collection.
Mhm.
But I just take a typical backpack that's not too raggedy, and just make sure that I've sturdy-ish deck boxes.
Yeah, if you're carrying them in a backpack that's going to get jottled, you want to make sure that whatever deck box the holder that's holding your card is not going to get damaged or crumpled. So you want to make sure that it's stiff and hard.
Mm-hmm.
Any last comments about accessories that are on the market or that you guys use in any way, shape, or form?
I think there are digital accessories that could be eventually useful for this game, but we
I
will
think
talk
that
about
can
that
be a
later.
whole,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that'll be justified to be its own episode.
Yeah. Um,
But yeah, at the end of the day, like find what works for you.
they need Disney dice.
I've seen some.
I was gonna say they make them. I've seen them.
Okay.
Yeah, I know for the part of the Disney 100 collection, they released a set of dice. But yeah, I don't know. Find what works with you. You know, some people that do like tote bags. Some people that like the Ziploc bag, like
Mhm.
it's whatever you want that protect the cards.
It's the majority of my
But
Magic career.
like here's the thing though, people are gonna look at you with a lot more respect the nicer your accessories are,
Yeah.
and they're gonna think that you're a better player.
Yeah, if you want the
So
intimidation factor, yeah, you can at least get a deck box and not a Ziploc bag.
if you really want them to remember you, throw up a no call retrieve, Ziploc bag, rubber band,
Uh-huh.
pile tuple, and play the $600 meta deck. With a chance that they're gonna be talking about you for a while.
If you have money to burn, you should just buy an accessory. Ugh.
Last question for each of you guys before we move on to the card of the week is: what is the one accessory you wish that you had? Whether it's something that's on the market or it's something you wish is out there available to use.
So this is gonna sound so nerdy, but I've always wanted a deck box that could go on a belt. Because ever since I saw them in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime using them, I was like that. I want that. It's not super practical, and and I realized that like other than like a tournament, with honestly doing a challenge event with that would actually be kind of nice. So don't have to look around a big backpack. But like, having it on a belt loop, I feel like I've always kind of wanted it in my heart, but I could never justify actually buying, making.
Now I want one of those.
Oh man. That's the next big market for us to 3D print, belt loop deck
Oh,
boxes.
off topic, but back to what Scott tells. Scott, your job tells a cup holder that can go on a belt loop that can hold a can. I would like that equipment if you don't mind. Be nice when I'm walking around the top that's having my pop on my head.
Oh jeez. Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific. I mean, one thing that I don't have, I don't really care that much because I don't care about my playmats. But getting a playmat holder, like if I had one that I wanted to play with, that was expensive. But all of my playmats are like $20 or less MSRP, and I will get that value if they, wear out.
Yeah,
It.
I mean,
So
yeah, the only one I have in a tube is the one I won from the championship.
mhm.
Not to advertise this or anything, Matt, but you may want to check out a certain online retailer. They sell the belt loop deck boxes for only $20.
You know it's a thing, but it's one of those things that like, should I have this? It's no longer like I want it. I can get cool, but are other people gonna get cool? Are people gonna give me looks?
Screw
If my
those people, Matt.
will my fiance still make eye contact with me afterwards?
Yeah, that's true. I think there's like a limit. If you have one, it's cool. If you've got like 5, you're pushing some boundaries there. Scott, how about you?
For me, the accessories that I want are not necessarily accessories for gameplay. I would like to see more just accessories to the game, like posters, or basically it boils down to merchandise. But because TCG Accessories as is, there's so much stuff out there. Like, as we're just talking about that online retailer. If you have an idea for something you want, it's out there. They're easy to find. So
Mhm.
I want stuff that isn't even created yet.
Yeah, that kind of game Ravenbrook haven't developed a lot into yet. I definitely think that as the game grows, we'll probably see more. I think probably around. I I think after they renewed the contract, they'll probably start factoring more merchandising stuff. When they walk out with Disney, those numbers. But I definitely think that as the game grows, we'll probably see more of that. But yeah, I have a I I have Magic posters. I have a bunch of other like stuff from Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh my god, Yu-Gi-Oh had so much merchandise.
Wait, so is clothing considered accessories? Because
Yep.
that's what I want then.
Yeah.
Okay, Lorcana themed clothes that aren't like. I don't think I want to put the world on blast. Like, hey, I play Lorcana, but something that's like nice-ish looking, but is recognizable.
Well,
It's just like a shirt with the Lorcana logo.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
like like a pattern of the logo or like the Lord symbol, like cooking that like if you don't know what it is, it could still look kind of nice.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the Lorcana hats are cool. I'm not a hat person, but the ones that I saw looked pretty sick.
Yeah, if it one of those things that like if we would have stayed longer to do more side events, like that would have been what I would have wanted my ticket to go towards.
Hmm.
Well, then let's go ahead and move into our card of the week. So our card of the week is going to be Sheriff of Nottingham, Bushel Britches. This card comes from Shimmering Skies. He is a 9-drop non-inkable with a 5 strength and a 9 willpower. Storyborn villain. He quests for 4. He has the ability of every little bit helps. For each item you have in play, you pay 1 less ink to play this character. And he also has support. And he is drawn by, I'm not sure if it's Joseph or Joseb Saleh. So, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you played this card in one of your decks. So we'll start with you on gameplay.
Yeah. So I think this card is right on the edge of being good versus great. I think it's fine, but he's definitely you had the uninkable hurts him a lot. The being able to play him for 5 or 6 is great. The part that stinks is if you play him and then they just remove him. It just kind of feels bad because you feel like you did all this effort by playing down items to get this character out early and just to have that negated. Um, it's a bit of a feels bad moment, but yeah, I wasn't super impressed when I played with him. I was playing him in the Ruby Sapphire items deck this past week. I think I would have been equally as happy with Ariel, the one with Ward, and get 2 additional lore if you have the most items in play. But overall, I like to see more item synergy cards. It makes or cards that benefit off you having items, because it makes you really make that decision when you're building the deck of whether or not you want to play more items, which generally don't affect the board state that much. And so you're making sacrifices for more power later in the game. So, yeah, I would say out of 5 stars, I'd probably give him a 3.5. Like he's good, situationally good, but I wouldn't build an entire deck around this. Or for him to be great, you have to build an entire deck around him. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, he very much an item focused character, like and yeah, like even in my item focused deck, I think the most I really have on board at a time is like 5 or 6. And part of that is because a lot of the real item synergy we have going around right now is balancing items too.
Hmm.
I definitely think that once items get a little bit more broken, based on what Oddworld looked like in the next set, I think once we get more characters and more ways to play items for free, now with the new print and what Oddworld gonna look like in the next set, I definitely think items are gonna get a lot stronger. and I definitely think he might see some play when someone figure out how to break him. Like, if you can like honestly get to the point where like you're past 7 items, then he did a deal for the ink.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the dream that I had was somehow playing an Amber Sapphire item deck, which doesn't make sense because if you're playing this many items, he's you're losing on the board, and because he doesn't do anything when you play him, like it's doubly hard trying to come from behind. But you play him with the Dragon Gem, which allows you to return a character with support from your discard to your hand. And so basically, if you can play him for 2 or 3, he's basically an unkillable card. Or I mean, he's
Mhm.
killable, but he's a threat every turn that they have to deal with every turn, which would be a lot of fun. But I just don't think that you can stay in the game long enough if that was your strategy to have like 6 or 7 items out and be playing Amber and Sapphire.
Well, you gotta learn some daisies.
Yeah,
You gotta get that aggro bill going early.
then you're not playing items.
For me, my only experience with this card was playing against you Friday night, Mike, and I knew you had this card in your deck. A part of me dreaded when this card was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because I knew it was coming and I knew my deck could not. I had no easy answer to this card in my deck.
Yeah.
Um, so he's one of those characters where if your opponent knows you have him or the possibility of having him, he is this threat. And if they can't take care of him in one turn, then he is going to be a big problem to deal with.
Yeah.
Also, with how the removal strategy is going, so much of that is strength based right now, and he is so much tougher than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so,
He's a problem for a lot of decks because just like Tamatoa is a problem or was a problem for a lot of decks. That 5 strength is hard. The high willpower. Yeah.
yeah, like with my main tournament deck, my Teotong deck, I'm going to have to be burning a lot of my cards into him to kick him out before he turns sideways. Oh, if I'm lucky, I'll have 2, and then along came Duted. But like, I'm burning a lot of resources to try to get him before he turned over. And like, a lot of people aren't running Dragonfire. Like, some people are running Let It Go and Sapphire, but not a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Haiti doesn't get a lot of play anymore. Lady Tremaine doesn't get a lot of play anymore. So that King Undefeated, I think, is actually getting a fair amount of play. But again, like if you actually have other people kings on the board,
Yeah.
like if you can get them out, you have a decent odds.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say he's definitely has a place. I would say if you can't get your hands on a Tamatoa, he's a decent replacement in an item focused deck. But I think Tamatoa still edges it out because Tamatoa can return those popsicles to your hand,
Mm.
or the steel sphere, whatever that one's called, Fortisphere.
Yep.
And so that's an extra card draw, replaces itself, and has a potential to get more than 4 lore. But
Yeah.
overall, yeah, fun card. The other thing that came into play, I was going to say, so I played with is it Tipo, right? The 2-drop, and my Tipo was able to take out Scott's Robin Hood, the 4/5 quester for 4 because of the support, and it actually came in handy. So having support is not something to balk at,
The
especially if
port
you're playing lower characters.
the port is an underrated mechanic. And one thing is that a lot of people forget is the port can be played on your opponent. So
Hmm.
cards like Graded Criminal Mind, uh you see a lot more play. So if you do ever get around to building the Amber Sapphire deck with him, you can run Great Criminal Mind, and then he is at making everything on your opponent's side of the board.
Killable, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call. All right. You're going to push me over that edge and start building this deck finally.
Well, also not just Great Criminal Mind on the mini Musketeer to have the same effect.
All right, you guys heard it here first. Sheriff of Nottingham, tier 1 potential.
And we can
Okay.
kill one potential. It's just we gotta wait and see what new code we get.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on the Sheriff of Nottingham.
I think it's fun. I'll probably keep him in the deck for another week just to play around, make a couple changes here and there. But the uninkability is really what hurts. If it's inkable, I'd say definite include in item-based decks.
Like not sorry, what Mike was saying. Like he's a good, cheaper alternative if you are trying to build a budget item deck and you want a big payoff and you can't afford a Tomatora, or either don't have a full playset of Tomatora or the Aerial. I would only want like one, maybe two of him in an item deck.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely like Oddall, like depending on how the game going, I'm probably going to be using Fishbone Quill to put him in my Inkwell.
Thanks, guys, for another great episode of Adventures in the Ink. Viewers, don't forget to like, subscribe to the videos. Let us know what you think. Also, don't forget to get into those comments and congratulate Matt for not bringing up a TV show for an entire episode.
Yeah, you did a big deal about it last time, so like I'm not going to take anything. But like we need one.
Well, that's all the time we got for tonight, Illumineers. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, adventure awaits.